All right, well, welcome everybody. Tom Miller here. One of my favorite topics to talk about, priorities as a school leader. So thanks for taking some time out of your extremely busy days, and hopefully everybody had a chance to download the workbook. If you didn't, I think I put it in the last link to you. If not, I'm gonna drop it in the chat here as we're talking. So go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box, whether you're in the comment box, wherever you're listening and watching and from. I'm gonna get this keynote up. Should have had that already. Hey Brian, hey Vanessa, hey Kelly, hey everybody. What an incredible day it is for us. So here's how I'm going to start. I'm going to talk about how everybody, all school leaders, every school leader that I've met wants some form of normalcy. Give a yes in the chat box if you had some form of normalcy, right? Or whisper to the person next to you, or at least some sort of like evolved normalcy, right? As a school leader, this has been one of the most challenging last 18 months that any school leader has ever gone through. So some sort of normalcy as a school leader, as normal as it can be when you've got all those human beings in your building. So that's great to see all those yeses. We got our Facebook Live also with lots of yeses too. So what I want to share today, what I want to really talk about is how we create a normal in our world, right? Because it doesn't matter what fires are coming at us, right? COVID was a fire that we weren't ready for, but nobody could ever have anticipated. But we've had fires before. Things happen in our building, right? I mean, you come to school, you prepare, like, hey, this week I'm going to be super prepared. I'm going to be ready every day. So that Sunday night you take a look at your calendar and you map out your meetings and you map out your observations and all these other pieces. And so you're ready to go. And then you get into the building, right? Or you drive up or you pull up to the parking lot Monday morning, and there's already, the car lines already like the carpool lines all, jammed up, right? Or maybe you got two text messages from the time you left your house to the time you got to the actual physical school building, where two of your teachers say, I can't come in, I'm not feeling well, or my kid's sick, or there's been some contact, tracing, and the nurses reaching out. They say, oh, we just can't do this, right? So you have all these great, intentional actions, but all of a sudden, you got problems, right? Your inbox is blowing up, teachers out, COVID tracing. And the next thing you know, the day's over, and you missed that really important observation, or you had to cancel that really important meeting, and then you end up, staying late because you spent the entire day trying to put out fires, and you didn't get to the important stuff for the day. You saved that until after school, and then you got to text home to your spouse or significant other or your child and say, hey, I'm not going to make dinner on time, but I Ubered some food to you. I mean, no wonder right now in North Carolina, the average tenure for principals is less than 3 years. No wonder I've had to be the interim head of school of 4 charter schools in the last 18 months. It might be the most challenging job ever. But it wasn't until I started to truly understand and practice this leadership principle I learned from my mentor, John Maxwell, called the law of priorities, that I really started to understand how I should be spending my day. And the law of priorities gave me a framework and a plan to focus my day on what matters most every single day, right? And every day, I'll be honest, every day there's a battle between my plan and my personality, right? Or my plan and the culture of my work environment. I have to battle my own, love of being the technician, love of, trying to, be the person operating, because I want to do everything. I want to be a part of everything. That's just part of my personality. Or the culture where, systematically things are broken and no one can seem to solve any problems without coming to see me first. Sometimes the culture wins. Sometimes my personality wins. But sometimes the law of priorities wins, right? And that's what I want to teach you today. That's what I want to go through. So again, I've already said, I believe it, the school leader's job is one of the most interrupted jobs on the planet. Every day there's a fire. Every day there's something you got to put out. Every day there's an employee you got to talk to. Every day there's a challenge you got to be thinking on. And so I'm really, again, I'm honored that you would take the time out of your busy day, because I know most of you, if not all of you, are operating schools right now. So you may be eating your lunch right now, or walking through lunch, or handling some other business. So I want to make sure this is extremely valuable to you. So want to make sure everybody's got the workbook, right? So you've got the workbook or a way to take notes, print it out, because that's going to align to the exercises. And if you don't have the workbook, put it in the chat box and I'll pull it back out again. But about 10 years ago, just a short story, about 10 years ago, when I was in my second year as a principal, my first tenure, second year as a principal, my wife woke up and it was, I was just about to leave for work. I said, hey, good morning, honey. Hey, what does a heart attack feel like? And she's like, what do you mean? What does a heart attack feel like? Thank you, Vanessa, for sharing. What does a heart attack feel like? What do you mean? What does a heart attack feel like? And she's like, sit down, tell me more. I was like, I don't know. I woke up a couple hours ago and I just haven't been feeling really good. She's like, okay, well, look, lay down, take your tie off, relax, your shoes off. Let's dim the lights, and I'm going to call the doctor. I just want you to settle. So as she was, doing that, I reached over for my, BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry at the time. If anybody had one, they're not sleek like, are like iPhones now. It was big and thick and just had like an OtterBox on it. It was like a giant brick almost. And I quickly texted, my boss and said, hey, having some health things right now, but I'll be in as soon as I can, right? And that's just the mentality that we have as educational leaders. Like, I'm just going to fight through this, right? Almost like the Chicago Bears, so having a heart attack is, like the guys like that. So I did end up going to the doctor, and he checked me out, and this ended up, being high stress with a lot of dehydration. But while he was checking me out, he said, so what do you do for a living? I said, oh, I'm a school principal. He goes, oh, that makes sense. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, based upon your blood pressure and your levels of stress and everything else, to be honest, you're not really taking very good physical care of yourself. And I was like, whoa, doc, take it easy here. I barely know you. And he said, look, just remember, you only get one shot on this beautiful blue earth. So make sure that you're spending it doing the right things with the right people. Doing the right things with the right people. Those words specifically changed my life. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but I want to make sure that you have a chance to answer questions or ask some questions as we go. So as you're going through your workbook, we're going to work through it together. So I want to give any quick opportunities here for someone to ask a question while I pull my workbook and share my screen up. You can put your question in the chat box. All right, let's do it. Scan for viruses, and here we go. All right. So the daily rule of 5, we're going to start here right at the top of the first page. And the daily rule of 5, this is what I'm going to define it as for you. The daily rule of 5 is these are the 5 things that a school leader that I believe should prioritize on their calendar every single day. Now, everybody's 5 are going to be different, okay? Some will be somewhat similar, but pretty much everybody's going to have a different one. And I know it's crazy because you guys do millions of things a day. You make tens of thousands of decisions, but there's really only 5 things that you can and should do. Now, what you're asking is, well, yeah, all right, Tom, so how do you get there? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to know and understand the Pareto principle, all right? And that's what you should have here at the top of your page, the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle says, and some people say Pareto principle, but it says 20% of your activities are going to give you 80% of your overall results. So 20% of your activity will give you 80% of your results. If you spend 80% of your time, energy, and money and personnel on those top 20% of your priorities. Okay, so 20% of your activities gives you 80% of your outcomes. If you spend 80% of your time in that 20%, it's going to bring you greater results. And so you've got this, screen. So if you just, take a look at this graph, you'll see that 20% of your activities brings 80% of your results. And 80% of your results, right? And so there's other 80% of your activities, right? That's the working by default. That's the putting out fires, and that really only brings you 20% of your results. And I don't like those returns. I don't know about you. If anybody likes those returns in the room, you let me know, because I don't. Right? I want to get greater return for my time. So here's how this shows up in our life, right? 20% of the clothes you wear come from 80% of the, 80% of the clothes you wear comes from 20% of the clothes you actually physically own, right? The 80% of the content you actually need from a book only comes from 20% of the pages. 80% of the content you need, right, to be better at the law priorities is only going to come from 20% of this presentation. 80% of your problems right now are coming from 20% of your people, or 20% of your broken systems. 80% of your volunteer hours are going to come from 20% of your parents. 80% of your referrals come from 20% of your teachers, and probably 20% of your student base too, right? Think on it. It's systemic. It's over and over and over again. So what Pareto was sharing with us, that if you want to cut down a tree, like Abraham Lincoln said, he said, if you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend 4 hours just sharpening the blade. You've got to focus your time on what's most important. What are the activities that are going to give you the greatest return? The greatest return. So if you have your to-do list right there in front of you, you could actually physically line up your to-do list, versus what the outcomes you're looking for, right? So whatever you use to plan your day, and it's your job on a daily basis to identify what are the top 2 things, right? So if you've got 10 things, on your to-do list, what are the top 2 things that you need to be doing that day? Right? What are the top 2 things that you need to be doing that day? That's your job as a leader, is to know and understand. Because everything else needs to be delegated or empowered, or other people need to be trained how to do it. Or even better, just stop doing it. Right? Like, I got to stop being the technician. I've got to stop, spending the time doing a little thing so I can focus on the more important things, right? Preparing content for you, serving my clients, getting better as an organizational leader. So I'm going to show you how to get to that process, because I can hear your brains right now. You're actually saying, like, there's just no way I could just prioritize just those 2 things, Tom. There's just all these challenges. All these things are happening. And I get it. And I've been there before. Remember, I said I was a middle school director, right? I had many challenges with this, but I've also been, directors of 4 charter schools since January 2020. That means I've had to go into these organizations with a plan and a framework. In 90 days, I've got to I've got to fix them and get them in a better direction. I can't do that if I have to do everything, because I don't know how to do anything at that school. I want you to catch this before I move on, because even though I knew the law priorities, I wasn't living the law priorities until I went to the National Charter School Conference about 5 years ago. And Tom Torkelson, he's the founder of Idea Public Schools, and he led that network for 2 decades. He just stepped down this past April. And so someone asked him, it's the largest charter network in the country. It had like 150,000 students at the time. And he said, what's the most important aspect of your job? And he said that he spends on average 60% of his day teaching adults how to lead other adults, right? Teaching adults how to be more effective leaders. That's how he spent 60% of his day. So if the 80-20 principle is real, right, which is it is, because everything we have, right, that means that 80% of your time as a leader needs to be spent with your top 20% of your people, because they're the ones that are going to give you that 80% return on the back end. And what I did wrong as a principal, right, which was a giant mistake, is I spent 80% of my time with the bottom 20% of my people. Now, tell me if that sounds right, right? I mean, has everybody been there? I should just say, if I could just get them to be better, we would be such a better school, right? If I could get them as good as the rest of my teachers, we'd be in better shape. And then, but then my top 20% of my teachers were like, well, what do we have to do to get Tom's attention? And recently I was, coaching a leader, coaching a charter school principal, and she said, one of my key staff members said to me today, just because you think I don't need your help or support doesn't mean that I don't want it. How many of your top 20% might be thinking that? How do I get Brian's attention, Vanessa's attention, Barbara's attention? Like, what do I have to do? I mean, think about it. Most of you, if not all of you, were classroom teachers, right? Remember, you had those top 20% of your kids too. You're like, gosh, if everybody would just act like them. But they were thinking the same thing. How do I get Mr. Miller's attention? So you've got to be really, really focused. And remember what my doctor told me is that who you spend time with, right? Who you spend time with. So this is a key, this is a leadership mistake that I made, that I was spending my time with the wrong people. You need to spend your time with the right people. And this should be your top capacity and coachable teammates, your top 20%. And I've got a reflection sheet that I pulled from the book, Developing the Leaders Around You, which we're about to start a book study on this upcoming Monday, but that's going to help you identify who are those, capacity builders, who are those individuals in your organization who are ready for more. So if you're interested, I'll add it to the resources. You can have it, but I highly, come into our book study starting next week if you're not a part of it now. And I know, sometimes you're all saying it's just easier and faster if I just do it myself, and that's true for today. Right? But not for tomorrow and not for the rest of the year. So if I can train someone in less than an hour how to complete a task that takes 10 to 15 minutes of my time once a week or once a month, or even once a quarter, at minimum, I'm breaking even, right? I'm getting that hour back. I'm going to get that time back because now I don't have to do it because someone else is doing it. And yes, I'm still responsible that it gets done, but I'm not necessarily required to do it. So I'm gonna stop the share for a second. I'm gonna open up. What questions do you have so far on the Pareto principles? Anybody who's got a question, let me do it so folks can unmute themselves here if you want. How do I do that? There we go. Let me know if you got a question so far. And Vanessa was nice enough to drop the workbook back in here for us. All right, so nothing so far. All right, so far we talked about the Pareto principle. Go ahead and move. Let's move on to the next page of the workbook then. All right, so we understand that 80% of our return comes from 20% of input, right? So, all right, so now we understand the principle. All right, and here's how you start to answer those questions. Right, we're going to use these 3 questions to get closer to our work in the Pareto principle. So number 1 is what is required of me. So in your notes, what is required of me? These are the items that only you can and should do for yourself, and nobody in your organization, on your team, that can do for you. Right? These are things only you can and should do, right? Can and should. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, that's everything, Tom. Well, it's not. Because anything that anybody can do as 80% as well as you can, you've got to delegate it. You've got to empower them. And I'm actually having a situation right now with a school that I'm weaning out of, being the head of school, and someone just did, they've got someone in charge of payroll, and they weren't necessarily trained to do it really well, and there's some errors with it, and and I could do it, right? I could just, take it over to the task and do it, but that's not going to serve that person, and it's not the best use of my time. I corrected some of the payroll. We had a conversation about expectations, and I said, hey, work on this the rest of the afternoon. Send it back to me when you're done, right? And you have to delegate those tasks. Even though you can do it, doesn't mean that you should do it. You have to, give it to the person and treat them like a professional. So you have to think about who on my team could start doing some of these tasks. And I'm going to show you an exercise here in a couple of minutes of how you get there, right? Because right now you might think you don't have anybody, and that's fine, but I'm going to give you time to get there. But the second question is, what does this organization get the greatest return when I do it? What does the organization get the greatest return at when I do it, right? So this means that it's in your strength zone. It's you're the best at it at your school or your organization or on your team. You've been successful at it in the past, right? Sometimes you might be the person in your organization who has the most experience, but it doesn't mean that you're the best at it, okay? So let's put that aside. So part of this process is, as you're going through the work, you're identifying people that you're going to train to do the work next. But you're not going to do it for very long, right? So like when I'm doing payroll, like I just decided, look, there's someone who's equipped here to do it, right? They just need some training. I'm only going to do it for this, 30 minutes. For some of you, it might be 30 days. But you're going to get a greater return on the back end. Okay, you're going to identify and so you're going to put yourself on a very short time frame to be able to identify someone and train someone. It may not be someone in your organization now. Maybe it's someone that you can third party contract with, someone else who can help you get there. You can start to ask around, but you just say, hey, look, line in the sand, 30 days from today, September 26th or 25th, 2021, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to have someone in place to do this. And the last R, right? This is the 3 R's. What rewards me? What fuels and fills my heart? What am I passionate about? When you're able to line up these 3 R's, right? When you line up these 3 R's every single day, it's complete bliss. Like you're just constantly working in your strength zone. You don't mind going to work. You enjoy the challenge because you're focusing on the things that you love to do with the people that you love to work with. You're focusing on what's growing your organization. People are growing your organization. Better systems is growing your organization. Better results, right? Multiplication of yourself. You're focusing on the things that fill your heart. Now, if you've taken our DISC personality profile, I know a lot of you have, if you go to page 17, it'll specifically tell you what your strengths are, everything above, the line. And there's 2 or 3 that are going to be above the line. That's where you should spend 90% of your day. So if you spend 90% of your day in those, strengths, and you follow these 3 R's, oh my gosh, you are stretching yourself because you're constantly out of your comfort zone, because not doing what's easy is part of your comfort zone. Like not being the technician, not, feel like, handing something over is uncomfortable. But that's where success is, one step outside of your comfort zone, right? So I want you to spend 90 to 95% of your day outside of your comfort zone and 90 to 95% of your day in your strength zone. My 3 strengths are creativity, influence, 4 strengths, creativity, influence, directing, and persisting, according to the page 17 of my DISC. Now my growth areas are relations, processing, and details. So I need to make sure that every day I'm staying in the creativity, influence, directing and persisting, but then I'm surrounding myself with the relations, processing, and the details. And my teammate Lauren, she's not on here right now, but she's really great at the details and processing. Like she's starting to build systems for all the work that I spend so much time and effort doing. I'm great with strategy. I'm great with ideas. I'm great with mindset. I'm great with vision casting. I loathe details. I loathe like the deep down writing that sometimes I have to do as a consultant. I'm not strong at. I struggle with leaving out key information. I'm constantly working on that, right? So you have to know and have an understanding of what you're strong at, right? So my work, I may paint a picture, right, and place people in the positions of success and coach them. But to tell them a step-by-step of writing out the systems in a process, that's not what I'm good at. But I can help people understand their place in the role, right? And if you're not good at those details either, right, you could record yourself when you're doing your own tasks. You could use Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, or some sort of video to just record yourself doing it. And then you could use a tool like Otter, and you can transcribe it, right? Or you can talk out loud. These are the steps that I would take, to get there. Because sometimes that's where we struggle is, well, I don't have time to train somebody. Well, you're already doing the task, so you definitely have time to train somebody. Just invite them into the room, right? Or invite them into the Zoom or do a screen share. There are ways that you can start to equip people. Let me find that participant there and mute them. Sorry about that. All right. So when your 3 R's align, right? When your 3 R's align, it really, really makes a significant difference. So I'll stop sharing here for a second so I can see everybody. Is there any questions you can put in the chat box? Is there any questions you have on the 3 R's, or how you start to identify your 3 R's, or anything I need to repeat about the 3 R's? All right, I'm not seeing any. Okay, well let's keep moving. So now we've learned about the Pareto principle, right? That 80% of our results come from 20% of our work, right? And it's our job to make sure 80% of our time is focused on whatever those 20% are, right? Those are the 2 key things that I want to be spending the majority of my day with. And how I'm going to get there is I'm going to use the 3 R's. I'm going to think about what's required of me as a leader. These are all the things I can and should do as a leader. I'm going to ask what gives the organization the greatest return at it when I do it, right? Not just what I like to do, what I'm the best at, right? Or what I can't at this point train someone else to be as good as I am, or as someone that's 80%. And the last R is reward. What fills my heart? What's in my strength zone? What are things I love to do? Okay, and there's lots of ways to find out. If you're taking our disc, go to page 17. I can do a disc profile with you if you want. You can go to our website, leadersbuildingleaders.com /disc, and it will track it down, right? Or just email me at tom@lbleaders.com. All right, so now 3 questions, right, to help you even dig further on this. So let me get back to my share screen here, which of course, I think I lost my share screen here. Let me try it again. There we go. All right, so we talked about these 3, right? When these 3 align, help you reduce your list and prioritize your time. So every day when you're making your list, you're going to ask these 3 questions, because you've already started working through your 3 R's. So this is like the ultimate test here. Does this task need to be done? All right, that's question number 1. Does this task need to be done? If it doesn't, just cut it right there. Stop doing it. Does this really need to be done? Question number 2 is, does it need to be done by me? Does it need to be done by me, right? So let's go back to the payroll example. Does payroll need to be done? Yes. Yes, it does. People will be very angry if payroll's not finished and it's not accurate. Now, does it need to be done by me? No, not necessarily, not all of it, right? Maybe someone else could do 80 to 90% of the work. I just need to do that last 10%, right? So does it need to be done? Does it need to be done by me? Now, I encourage a lot of leaders to just stop doing some things, and you'll find out whether it's actually important or not. right? Because if you get a memo or you realize that, hey, oh my gosh, no one's done the payroll, right? Or in our case, it was, hey, checking on the benefits, and people are changing their benefits. Like there's things that were happening behind the scenes of payroll that we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So, oh gosh, well, someone's got to do these things because they're really, really important, right? We want to make sure people have access to their retirement and their benefits and their supplementary pieces, right? So we learn. So then we have to do it. That's when a fire breaks out. But knowing whether or not you have to do it is not so important, right? Is there anybody else who can do it for me? Anybody else who can do it for me? And if that answer is yes, start to build that plan and start to train them, right? Start to give it to them, start to tell them, I see you in total charge of payroll in 30 days from now. So that's, 2 more pay cycles. And by September 25th, you're going to be in charge of it. But we're going to go through these 2 cycles together. So you know how to do it. So, by that point, you'll be doing 85 to 90% of the work, and I'll just be, verifying it, right? So, you're going to model it first, and you're going to train and teach them, and you're going to do it together until they're at that 80% level, and then just keep on coaching and moving them forward. Like eventually, eventually you're going to move them to a point where they're going to teach someone else, right? And now you're really multiplying your leadership, right? Because now you have multiple people in your organization who can do the payroll. Your job as a leader is to literally work yourself out of a job. So every task that you write down, or even in your middle of the task, I ask myself all the time, should I be doing this? Yes or no? The answer is yes. Does it have to be done by me? No. Okay, who can I get to do it, right? And you can start to map that out. Or if I say, does this task need to be done? The answer no, then you just, stop doing it. Or I don't know, don't do it. And, give it a couple of weeks and then you'll figure it out. I know that's hard to do, and that's going to be a challenge because you're creating new habits, and it's going to take you time, 90 days or so to really be able to work through this process. But I can just, remind you, at one point you didn't know how to do your job. Now you didn't have to, you don't know how to walk or talk or ride a bike or swim or eat or do anything, right? You just learned how to do it. You don't know how to do anything until you do it for the first time. So just, again, just with this school, I had 26 days to hire 8 bilingual teachers. I was also responsible for all the human resources, right? I had to do this. I had 8 bilingual teachers in a Montessori school. I didn't interview anybody. Right? I set it up. I built the questions. I built the systems for people to apply. I put my teammate in charge of, managing all that. Here are the questions that I want. I asked, people to be part of my hiring team. I had, teachers on my hiring team, and they did all the work, right? They did all the work. I didn't do it. I'm responsible for it, but I didn't do it. I trusted the team that I had put in place based upon the parameters, right? So you got to get really clear with expectations. And I think this is where leaders really struggle with identifying their priorities. Is they're not always crystal clear with what they want done, right? What they want the end result to be. So therefore, that's why they say, well, it's just easier if I do it myself. But your time is your most precious resource. It's the only way that we're all equal, right? Some people are really, really good at how to utilize their time, right? Every principal has the same amount of time. So there's those 3 questions, right? What's required of me? What gets the greatest return? What rewards me? And then on the back end, every time you got your task, does this have to be done? Does it have to be done by me? Right? Who could do it for me? And at the very, very bottom here, right? So as you're working through your tasks, right? As you're working through your task, and this is a tool that I like, and it'll be, I'll send it out in the resources. You'll have your own version of it if you're registered for here or if you're part of one of our systems. But this is Covey's quadrants, right? These are the 4 quadrants that he works through. So the 2 columns are urgent and non-urgent, and the 2 rows are important and not important. So here's what you do here, right? Most of us spend most of our day working in quadrant 1. That's the crisis, pressing problems, right? We're working by default. But what Covey talked about is we need to be able to work in in a quadrant 2. These are the important but non-urgent issues. This is preparation and planning and goal setting and relationship building and reevaluation and improvement. So having these Covey quadrants is really helpful, right? Quadrant 3 is, this is urgent stuff, right? But not important. These are interruptions, unplanned activities, the parent that shows up that you weren't prepared for, or the teacher who's out, right? These are just things. These are things, right, that can be delegated. Someone else can be charged of these aspects at your organization. So if you're getting a lot of people come to you with their problems all the time and they can't solve the problems, you have a capacity issue. You have to spend time working with those people and building a system, because if it's taking a lot of your time, that means the system is broken or nobody knows the system. But people need to know what to do to handle certain things. That's your job as a leader. That's why Torkelson said, I spend 60% of my day teaching adults how to lead adults. It's how to build systems. It's how to grow. It's how to solve a problem. And anything that's in quadrant 4, you just don't do. So every morning I wake up, I look at my to-do list, and I start to build it out. Like, okay, right. So what I've learned how to do is now, and Lauren actually does this for me. I was like, hey, block time, because I need to spend time preparing for this, workshop, right? Or hey, block time so you and I can go through this, task. Like we're handling some big, major projects for some schools. Now I'm starting to block the time ahead, and I wasn't doing that before. And I'm doing it with a partner, because now I'm forced to actually do it. Because what used to happen is I used to block that time in my calendar and then not do it during that time because it wasn't urgent. But what I want you to learn how to do, if you want to live a more empowered life, you want to be an empowered principal, you have to live in quadrant 2. You got to fight the urge not to address the urgent. Don't let things get into the urgent. So sometimes that means taking some time and backing away and building some white space and really thinking about, how come we have this problem? What system is broken that's creating this problem? Here's a great example. In our COVID world, we're just running from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, and we're not building in the white space time in between the meetings to actually think and create and process, and we're losing our leadership edge. I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to lose your leadership edge. That's what you have. That's the difference between you and the other people in your organization, is you have a leadership edge and they haven't learned how to use this yet. So quadrant 4, you're going to eliminate those things. Quadrant 3, you're going to go through, does this have to be done? Does it have to be done by me? Who can I train to do it, right? Quadrant 2 is like, what are the most important things that I need to do? These are your 3 R's, right? These are the things that I need to be working on. And anything that keeps on popping up in urgent 1 that creates a crisis, you need to spend the time, like, how did we get to this crisis? How do we get to this pressing problem? How did we miss this deadline? Like, where could I have been better? It's a constant reflection to help you get from here to there. Give me a yes in the chat box if you're still with me, if that makes sense, if that's what you want. If you would prefer to work in the non-urgent quadrant 2, give me a yes. Yes, I want quadrant 2. If you don't, if you like working in the urgent, then that's okay. That's just your choice. I'm going to think that you don't want that, but you're not maybe sure how to get there. And it just takes baby steps. It takes daily activity, right? That's where a breakthrough occurs. It's good decisions made over time, right, in a consistent manner. And eventually, right, it just creates new habits. It creates, change. Daily good decisions occurring over time. All right, so let's finish this off. So when identifying your rule of 5, right, you want to make, you can use a tool like the, Covey's quadrants. We've got our 15-minute miracle that I'll send you if you haven't, used that. And that's a daily, sheet that you can write out every 15 minutes what you did during that time. It can be really, really depressing to really, really even think about, what I did. But what it helps you do is identify, where did you go down the vortex? Where did you get stuck? Was it in if the meeting was too long, or did a parent come and take your time? And you start to identify where your systems are broken. So I'm going to put that link in the chat box, but it's also going to come to you via email, since you registered for this too. And the most powerful practice that you can really start to implement is just daily reflection. At the end of every day, what did I do today that I don't want to do tomorrow? And you just start to create this list, and you go through, okay, this is what I did. Does this have to be done by me? Yes or no? The answer is no, then who can start to do it for me, and you start to train. You start to train and get those people into a better position, right? So this is how I define my daily rule of 5, right? I list out my to-do tasks. I rank my tasks in order of importance, and I identify those top 2, right? What are the 2 that are going to give me the greatest return? And in looking at the remaining tasks, I identify which tasks really have to be done, right? And these may go into the important column, right? And then I start to look at, who can do them for me, right? So I gave you this at the bottom of your sheet. You can start to figure this out right now, right? The task to complete. So maybe it's, calling a parent, participating in an IEP meeting, completing your ESSER grant, you're getting payroll finished, right? Where do they rank? Does it need to be done? Can someone else do it right now? And if they can't do it right now, who can I start to train? And so I really think it's important you start to identify your strengths as a leader. What are your strengths as a leader, and start to work in your strengths. If there's anything that you procrastinate on or take a long time, it's probably because you're working out of your strength zone. And I want to help you release yourself from your weaknesses, right? You don't have to do that all the time. You don't have to work in your areas of weakness. You need to surround yourself. You need to build a team that completes you, not a team that competes, that has the same skills over and over again. So now you've gone through the process, how to start it, right? Now I know, you'd be like, this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be daily steps on a daily basis, right? You just start handing things over to people. And if they're not at that 80% line, so you're going to have to build time in your calendar to spend time with them. So just start to look at when you do payroll, when you write grants, or when you do these tasks, when you do your performance framework, whatever it is, put it on your calendar and invite someone to come in with you, or record yourself, doing it. There's equipping people is a big part of your job, huge part. 80%, 60 to 80% of your job should be you developing leaders. And if you don't do it, the people that are hungry, the people who want to do more in your organization, they're not going to stay. And the only people that you'll have left are the untrained, the untrained, uncoachable, people. And if you think, that that's, costly, right? Just wait till you get to the bill for like incompetence, right? So pay to train people. Get people in your organization who can help you train other people. So that's how I do my daily 5. I just look through here, right? And every day I add value to people. Every day I create. Every day I learn through podcasts and books. Every day I think. Every day I lead. Like, these are the 5 things that I spend the majority of my day doing. And when I find myself being the technician in a task, I get out of it, right? I start to build a plan. I have virtual assistants that work in the Philippines, and they're fantastic. And I have to be better at delegating and giving them directions, because English is not their first language, but they're very, very good, right? I've got my teammate Lauren, and she's fantastic, and she does an incredible job as our chief operations officer, and she's a former principal and a great teacher. She does an amazing job. She can handle pretty much any task. In fact, she's like, hey, I need to do more things for you. Like, you need to start, like, she's, pushing me to hand it off. Like, she knows, like, she sees it. And every day, right? Every day, you're just working to get 1% better than the day before. And, just imagine if you grew 1% every single week, if you got 1%, even if you took a 2-week vacation by the end of the year, you're 50% better a year from today, August 26, 2022. And you're going to get all that time back. You're going to get hours and hours of time back. So use this activity, right? And so as a result of these exercises, what are the 5 things that I'll work to do every day? You can, start to think through what's your daily 5, and what are the things I'm going to teach and empower others, to start doing. So when you look at your to-do list, the most important things, right? We talked about developing people. Maybe you're the best instructional leader at your school. Maybe you're the best coach, or maybe you're just the best operations systems person, and that's fine. And you spend your time there. Then you find, someone else who can help you with the academic piece. Yeah, and I love the transparency, the chat box. So you just learned how to delegate. They had a hard time trusting. That's exactly what happens. We don't trust that other people will get done, but slowly but surely, right? Slowly but surely, we have to learn how to trust people. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to screw it up. But so are you. At some point, you're not going to be able to do it all, right? But yeah, start to surround yourself with really great people. They're equipped for the task, because otherwise, why have them, right? Why do we have all these employees? Why do we have all these employees if we're not willing to give them tasks to do? Yeah, and just add value to people. So I wanted to make sure that I shared a couple of these resources if you don't have access to them. So this first one I'm going to put here in the chat box is that 15-minute miracle. And I don't know if anybody of you have taken it, but if you just log in right there, it'll send it to you. And then every single day, it's a mini course. It's a mini course about how to do it, how to delegate it, how to dump it. And this is the start. If you start to do some self-assessment and you really start to identify what's most important that I do as a leader, and then use and really take a look at yourself. I remember coaching a principal with this, and he said, "Well, I already know what I do as a leader." I was like, "Okay, well, just entertain me. Do this for a couple of days." And when we got back on our coaching session, he's like, "Oh my gosh, this hurt. This hurt to really look at where my day's going." Like when you go back and start to calculate how you're actually spending your time on a daily basis, it can be hurtful, right? So, but that's just growth. That's just growth. And if you think, that you're not really sure about, how to equip people, or if you're equipping the right people, here's our next book study. It starts Monday, but it'll be great. It's developing the leaders around you, and you'll have access to the recordings if you can't make it live. But just another great opportunity to just learn. And I think this is maybe the most important book. I told Vanessa, it's probably the book that really made me realize that I wasn't really developing leaders, and because I just wasn't sure how to do it. I didn't know that there was a framework and a process for it. So this book's going to help you do that. So any thoughts and questions? What I would love, to do is just go around, the Zoom, if anybody's willing to put an action step either in the chat box, or, you just spent 48 minutes in here with me. So this is for anybody who's also listening to the archives, put it in the comment box. What is something you're going to do differently, or at least try tomorrow or in the next 24 hours to be in a better spot, so you can start being better at prioritizing and focusing your time on the right things. So you can unmute yourself now if you want to. One action step. What's one thing I'll apply? What's one thing I'll change? What's one thing I'll teach, someone else? I know for me, my action step is to, I get a little complacent with my daily list, and I need to do a better job of using the team around me to do some of these tasks. And what I've realized is I estimate that it takes 5 to 7 minutes to do one of these little tasks, but really it doesn't. It probably takes me 15 to 17 minutes. So as a result, I'm not predicting the right amount of time that something takes me. I'm underestimating the time is probably a better way to say it. And as a result, I'm losing time, right? I'm losing time. So you can't afford to lose time, because you all have the same 168 hours, just like me, right? We all got the same. And so what the difference is how we utilize those 168 hours, right? All those minutes per week. So that's going to be my action step. Vanessa's going to be working on the delegation of tasks. Yeah, good. So at the end of every day, what did I do today that I don't want to do tomorrow? Does it have to be done by me? No. Who can I do it? Who can I start to train? And when do I do it? So then I could just invite them. You could just create a calendar invite and go, boom, we're going to work on this task, and I'm inviting Tom, and we're going to do it in my office. Great. And then you see them and say, hey, I invited you to a task, and I go and do it. Yeah, Brian says, I want to organize my daily tasks so I can prioritize, get rid of all my sticky notes. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. I'm actually paralyzed by lists. I've got lists everywhere that I can't even find lists. Like here's one that it's just, just random. And I'm like, so I'm not always the best model when it comes, to that. And so, cause then I can't find my list, cause then I got to make a new list, because I can't find the old list. So, there's, some people that are much better at it than I am, but that's a good thing. So there's not a way, right? But just, think about what's the best way that I have had success in remembering my daily tasks. My partner, Jeff, used to write everything on a sticky note, and then he'd have like all these notes on the wall, and he loved like taking them down one at a time, but they weren't prioritized, right? So that's a key. What's the most important part of this task, and what are some other things I could do better? So awesome. Well, good. Well, like I shared, if you're listening to this archive, thank you, so much for taking the time and hanging in through here, right? What are you going to apply? What are you going to change? What are you going to teach? Make sure you take that workbook and you start working through page 3 and 4. That's going to be your reflection exercises. Go through those steps and really get clear. I'm going to put comments or links in here to our 15-minute miracle and the other resources, the Covey quadrants, and anything else that you need for time management. Because you're here, you're going to have access to our time management mini course, which is going to teach you those favorite D's that I have: do it, dump it, or delegate it, which I love, to do. And so that's a quick exercise. So great job, everybody. Thanks for being a part. If you're listening to the recording, make sure you subscribe and share, right? And like. Otherwise, my son Matthew, who's 8 years old, he just gets on me every day. He's like, Dad, you didn't tell anybody to subscribe to your podcast, right? Or subscribe to your channel, or share it and like it out. So he's 8, and dad will be a hero if we can get over 100. So, go ahead. If you're not subscribing to our pages, go ahead and do that, so then I can be a hero in front of my son's eyes. Thanks, everybody. I hope this added value to you. Now, go out there and make a difference. Bye-bye.